Well, hey, Christopher, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Of course. Thank you for having me, man.
Yes, sir. So let's begin our journey into your work as an author and a composer by asking you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed the world, changed all of us, especially creatives and musicians and writers. How did you get through that era, and how did it change the way that you approach work and life today?
Well, as a presenter of live concerts, it certainly had an effect. I had to get like masks with my logos on them and to put them out there to get very few audience members showing up. But I was able to continue through it as a concert presenter and composer. As a writer, as we're talking about here, I basically wrote a bunch of books. I had written the first two books of Tales of the Ocean City years ago, and then dove into the Fantastic Theater series, where I created live music theatrical pieces with the music streaming through speakers and beautiful art streaming by and theatrical presentation, puppets singing out. I did that for a few years. And then when the pandemic hit, it happened that it was time to turn back to Tales of the Ocean City. And I did books three, four, and five, like right in a row. And being then warmed up, I continued, and now we're on book eight.
So, talk to me a little bit about exactly if you were to break down what you do on a daily basis for a living for a bunch of kids at a grade school, 12-year-olds, career day, and the kid wants to know what you do for a living. How do you explain what you do?
Well, I lived many years of my life as a composer of classical music. I started writing stories. Before that, though, like when I was 9, I started writing fantasy stories with beautiful, colorful illustrations. And then I discovered music. In about high school age, I went to the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts and became a full-time classical music guy. I played oboe and sang the bass solos in Messiah and all this, and started composing and playing piano. And then I went to music conservatory and finished up my schooling 1991 with a doctorate in music composition and other advanced degrees in music. But my stories never left me. I don't know about you, but I'm the type of person that when I go to sleep at night, I have to put myself into like a active fantasy world, and then now fall asleep. So I came out of my schooling phase with my advanced music degrees and the complete event structure of Tales of the Ocean City all the way through book eight. And I started writing it down in the early 2000s. And that was okay. It wasn't quite happening until I had started creating. I started writing music for films and developing my home workshop, my home studio, you see. And then I said, why not? And I started narrating my books out loud and recording and creating the music all at the same time. So that's when it really happened. The speaking of the words of the story and the writing and the images, and with the music happening all at the same time, really brought it together. And that's where I found my voice as an author. So all that continues. A particular day, I might spend it on a composition project mostly. I also write music where I create soundscapes from hundreds of natural sounds and orchestral sounds and with beautiful videos and then with live musicians performing in front. They're environmental pieces, I call them. And I'm actually preparing one of those now for a concert in October. But I spend most of my time now working on my stories, Tales of the Ocean City. So I might be working on my website or the blog that's associated with it called The Power of Fantasy, or working on my author's website, or writing the book, or writing the music. And I'm going to actually start a podcast soon where I present the Tales of the Ocean City stories as like a radio drama with episodic, in episodic form, where each new one says, in the previous episode, this happened and the adventure continues and such. So I'm a creative artist, and in these various categories, every day I'll be working on something.
So, let me ask you this. When you were 12 years old, what was your dream job? What was your gig that you wanted to get?
I have no idea. I think things were very discombobulated at that point in my life with the family moving around all over the place and things like that. And I don't think I was thinking about what I want to be when I grow up at that point. I discovered music more like 14 and 15. And then when I discovered the life of a composer, I was set, and that was well before college. So, but 12 was a little nebulous kind of area in my
Yeah.
life.
So let me ask you this, as an author, what was your favorite book? What's a book that really resonated with you?
Sure. Well, the obvious, Lord of the Rings. Started The Hobbit. My sister was my first teacher in a way, and she gave me The Hobbit when I was 10, and I couldn't put it down. During my high school years, I read the Lord of the Rings like 17 times. But I also had another favorite. It's the Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. It's actually one of my absolute favorite books. And as an author, he was very meaningful to me. You can find videos of him speaking, and he talks about how when he wrote for many years works and books for adults, they were wonderful and rewarding, and he was doing well. But when he started writing for young people, young people audiences, the Chronicles of Prydain are like that, young audience, and the feeling tones and the emotions and the meaningfulness got greater and greater and greater, not less and less. So he wasn't like, I don't write down to the audience of young people. You write up to them, and you just engage their imaginations. Other books I love are the works of Michael Moorcock. I remember, Elric of Melniboné and all those Prince Coram Chronicles, and really imaginative stuff. And Edgar Rice Burroughs. I really loved Edgar Rice Burroughs, and in fact, he influences my work when my main character, who's named Harut, I get him in situations where he has a solo adventure, and it's very like Edgar Rice Burroughsy in terms of the linear structure of the adventure that he's having, but the context of it, that like the creatures and monsters that he has to deal with are very much inspired by something like H.P. Lovecraft, and they're very super imaginative, wild creatures. And so those would be the main ones. I mean, I could also list Anne McCaffrey. Like she wrote The Dragon Riders of Pern, and my main character is Harloot and Vespucian. Vespucian is a Perianth, which is a kind of large telepathic Pegasus, and she and Harloot are bonded, and they speak mind to mind telepathically to each other, and they have a very close relationship. Kind of based on my animal friends when I was growing up. I was very close. My dog. I thought we talked telepathically to each other now and again, and so that is a unified element. So those are the main book influences I can say. Musically, I really the music of Igor Stravinsky is very prime. You'll hear it in all of my pieces, some way or another, in my way, not like an imitation or anything, but he's a prime influence in my work. You'll also hear other composers like Frank Zappa's favorite, Edgar Varese, and my teachers, Donald Erb and Carl Hussau. They're Pulitzer Prize-winning teachers who I studied with, and their music influences mine, of course. So all of that is there.
So take me back to your roots. Are you from Brooklyn originally?
No, we were a real gypsy family. I was born in Cleveland,
Okay.
Ohio, and we lived there and we moved around a lot. My mom was an actor, so she was very well. We moved a lot from place to place and theater companies and this, that, and the other. And then my family really broke apart with this really intense, wild, divorce, lawyers, and battles and all this kind of thing. And so then we ended up moving straight down as far as you can go to New Orleans. We stopped off in Atlanta for 2 years, and we ended up in New Orleans in the French Quarter. And that's where I went to the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. Then I went up to back to Cleveland to go to school, the Cleveland Institute of Music. And then I followed a teacher to Dallas for a year, Donald Erb, and then I went to Ithaca College and Cornell University and finished up my schooling. I lived in Ithaca for the most years, besides Brooklyn itself. So there was a lot of moving around, and now I'm settled here with my wife and daughter, cat and dog, and this is probably where we'll be forever now.
So, what were the elements? Was it always kind of a foregone conclusion since your mom was in the arts that you were going to have a career in the arts? Was that something that was always kind of woven into your psyche?
Well, yeah, it ended up that way. I mean, the sensibilities are given. It's not like you design a blueprint when you're 10 and and that's what you're going to do. But it surely ends up that way. I was when I went to the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, my teachers there were incredible influences. Like I didn't have a father, so they became real father figures, and I glommed onto them, and they were great. There was Dr. Bro, who was an amazing teacher, and then Ellis Marcellus was there with Winton and Branford, so they were classmates of mine. And Ellis Marcellus is a great man and a great teacher. And I really attached with him. He was the kind of guy that after the school day was over, he had things to do. He had like six sons and a job and lots of jobs but he would sit there at the end of the school day. As long as there were people, us kids around him, he would sit at the piano and answer questions. So and I would just soak it up like a sponge, right? And then my other teachers just continued from that. So it was a very natural process.
So, let me ask you this: who is an inspiration for you, creatively and otherwise, or a hero that's allowed you to evolve into this career that you have now?
Well, I would probably repeat myself a little bit. My One of my main teachers was a really great influence. His name was Donald Erb, E-R-B. You should check him out. He's a very, very great composer. He wrote incredibly imaginative music, the kind of thing where I was at the Cleveland Institute of Music. And the student orchestra was playing one of his pieces, his trombone concerto, which is incredibly wild and creative. And at the end of it, everyone is screaming their guts out about, and then I didn't realize, but I was one of them, just like screaming with joy. And so this guy was one of my main teachers for a long time. And he's the one I followed to Dallas and studied with him for a year and this, that, and the other. And so these people were like family. So Donald Erb, Eugene O'Brien is another teacher. Carl Husa was very strong, and Sidney Atkinson and Stephen Stuckey. These are all people people in the music world would know.
Yeah.
They were quite famous in classical music circles. And they really, music is like it's like old fashioned in a way. Classical music is like an apprenticeship, like people like if I wanted to study oboe and major in that instead of composition, I would have gone to a school where the oboist I wanted to study with happened to teach. The school itself didn't matter that much, right? So it's all like that. So these teachers take you under their wing really powerfully and really attach and are very powerful figures in your life. And all composers feel that way. And in fact, Donald Erb, there's a long list of ex-Urbis Herb students, and we're like a group. We still talk to each other after all these years.
So let me ask you this: what is the motivation every day to wake up to do this work that you do? I mean, being a creative sometimes can be kind of a daunting world of just all the myriad of things that you have to do, from creating to marketing to all of the aspects. But what has consistently made you wake up every day and do this work and evolve, and then also to take care of your soul and your family?
Well, my stories, Tales of the Ocean City, are things, it just erupt in my imagination as well as my music. And I just have to get it out. I mean, that's how we express life. That's what artists do. We express what it feels like to be alive in our work. And so that's how we communicate. Normally, I'm kind of, unless I'm doing a podcast, I'm a pretty introverted person. I'm just living in my mind all the time in my creative worlds. And so the way I interact with life and people is I put on a concert and present my music, or I write my books and do my audio albums and present them to people. And that's how I interact with others primarily. So I just wake, and it's been doing it for so long, it's just who I am and it's just what I do.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. If you were to have a dream tonight and run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the choices you've made, the wisdom that you've accumulated, what advice would you impart on that younger version of you?
Start an IRA,
There
you
you
know,
go.
and you put some money away, like that, and try to avoid student loans and things like that, practical things. The creative part I've done. I couldn't. I don't know what else I would tell myself. Just because one of my teachers, I mentioned Eugene O'Brien. He's no matter what you do, every day, do your 4 hours of your creative work, no matter what's going on in your life. And I did that. So I got that advice from him, and it's worked out pretty well that way.
What has been one of the most memorable fan letters you've gotten about Tales of the Ocean City?
Oh wow. People saying that, well, that's like the first book has a lot of autobiographical elements for me, where it's working through things that happened in my childhood, just through the story and resolving really positively at the end, like real difficult, conflicting. The first book is called Battle in the Sky, and it's a huge battle scene, right? So the princess is being horribly attacked, and Harloot is helping, and all this stuff's going on. And it has this beautiful resolution, so it's very cathartic. So people get that. And they get through it and they go, God, this made me help me get through things in my own life and solve some issues and problems. And I don't even know why or how, but I feel better, and I can put myself into the story and resolve things. And of course, it's also in the music, because the music is constantly like what music harmony does is, it creates tension and releases it. It creates conflict and resolves it constantly. And the music in the piece is sometimes I think that the story is accompanying the music because it's such a strong element. And so you go through all that and experience the total immersive effect of the whole thing, and people have emotional reactions.
And it's such a groundbreaking concept to kind of merge the world of composing that you have with the music and the visuals and the art. How did you have an epiphany? How did you come up with this concept? Because it's rather unique and all-encompassing in a multimedia way.
I know I get that question. And it's hard to answer because it was over a long period of years. Like I've been working on this since it was occurring in my head and sleeping, going to bed, and waking. Um, 35 years. All right. And I'm a composer, and I developed a home laboratory and started, doing music for independent films. And then I said, oh, why not, do this? And um, I could tell you one influence that I really think was an influence. Without a lot of influences occur without you thinking about them consciously, right? They just come out. And that was the old Reading Rainbow with LeVar Burton. You
Yeah.
remember that?
Oh
It
man, I
was
loved it.
visual,
Yeah.
and then he's narrating a story.
Yeah.
And I think when I was very young, that had a profound effect on me. And I even remember one of the stories, which was about a ship, like a small boat, a person in a small boat surviving hurricanes out in the ocean. And that is one of my recurring sleep fantasies, as I say. I created a whole other series I could write, but I think, I have to stick to one. So I think that was that. If I could point to that, definitely.
So I think at this point, this is a great segue. I'm going to play a clip. You've sent a
Okay.
few over to me. I'm going to go ahead and play those. And when it's done, I want you to explain to me why you picked specifically what you sent over to me.
May I set it up first?
Please do.
Okay, so Tales of the Ocean City is about the A story about a civilization turning the corner into the future. But first, they must face an enemy from the deep past, who are called the Vorm. And what happens in the beginning of the first book is the main characters, Harloot and Vespucian, are flying over the southern plain. He's like leaving his island home in order to join fully in the city life of the ocean city. And as he's going, he sees over there, he sees, oh, it's the Princess Brynlin and her parent bond, Jigla. And he wants to go over. He's just going over to say hello. He's a little nervous about it because she's the princess and all that. But as he's about to say hello to her, that's when they are attacked by the Vorm warriors. And so the first excerpt is a little bit into it. It's when she's already been involved in fighting them, and the Vorm send out these kind of psionic blasts, and so he had blacked out for a while, and Vespucian had gone into a cloud to kind of hide and wait for him to wake up. And then this is when he comes back to a consciousness, and then he joins in the battle. So that's the first one.
Tales of the Ocean City is the epic tale about a young civilization turning the corner into the future. But first they must face a terrible enemy from the deep past. The main characters are a young man named Harloot and his lifelong companion Vespucian, who is a Parianth, a kind of telepathic Pegasus. Book 1, Battle in the Sky.
"Vespucian, aloft!" cried Harloot. With a thrust of her wings, the white Pegasus shot upwards through billowing clouds. Harloot stood with his arms held out, balancing on her back. They burst into vast heights, the realm of Kurlra, the morning sun. Whose powerful beams illumined iridescent mist on his golden skin. Far below, the ocean roared and thundered. Vespucian reached the pinnacle of her high arc. Now, she thought to him. The Pegasus hovered, and Harloot dove backwards from her haunches. In a swan dive, he clove through tiers of frothing clouds. He used his chest and arms to glide in a spiral through the planet Terroir's thick atmosphere. He reached the cool, misty air just below the clouds, jackknifed and straightened, then sliced right into the churning ocean currents. Dark purples and greens suffused his eyes as he penetrated cold, shadowy depths. He arched his back, frog-tipped, and drifted lazily up towards a ceiling of shimmering blue light. A quick flash of fiery light caught Harloot's eye. He saw a circlet of fire jade winding through the Princess Brynlin's hair, which flowed about her neck and shoulders like a cloud of red and orange flames. A scarlet ribbon wound around her lithe form and down her back to meet an abundant sash. A skirt of loose swags flared about her legs in the wind. Harloot cleared his mind of the mesmerizing vision, stood on Vespucian's back, and prepared to utter his call and greeting. But Vespucian suddenly pulled up short in the air and mouthed a rasping bark. Her telepathic voice rang in his mind. "Danger! Alarm! Enemy!" Harloot instantly hunched over, gripped the mesh along her withers with one hand, and craned his neck up and to the left. He followed Vespucian's stark gaze. Multicolored whorls dissipated in the thick glaze of morning light. A blur form at the edge of his vision and separated into 3 jagged shapes growing in size. Blood-red streaks rent the air as 3 giant warriors riding massive red and black Parians shot past, heading directly towards the princess. A mind-numbing keening sound, followed by a venomous, sweet, acrid miasma, sliced through Harloot's senses. All went dark.
Okay. And then the second one, why don't you set up the second one for me?
The second one is later on, like at the opposite end of book 1, when the elder warrior Verdun lands after the battle scene. It's like after the battle has occurred, and his Parianth bond, by the way, is named Jigafra, and he's the king of the Parianths, and they're talking to each other about what they see and what is to come. It kind of sets up the story for the epic battles in the book 4 and 5.
Camouflaged in a small cloud, Disputation tread the air with her wings. She awaited Harloot's return to consciousness. Harloot's senses cleared. "What was that?" he rasped. "What's happening?" "We were stunned by some kind of psionic blast," she replied. Her mental voice sounded coarse. She was furious with herself for being caught off guard. "Prepare for battle," she urged. Tension flowed through him as he gripped Dispution's flanks with his knees. Having no weapon, he removed his tunic and wrapped the ends in his fists. Below, the princess was in the midst of her impassioned yet ill-advised attack. Disputation burst from their cover in the small cloud. The enemy bore down upon Brine Lynn. The foremost warrior uncoiled its obscene form and aimed a bristling spike for Jigla's exposed chest. "Dive!" Disputation commanded. Harloot took a quick breath and dove from her back, his arms outstretched in a swan dive. He held the ends of his rough cloth tightly in his fists. Wind whistled sharply in his ears, and turbulence buffeted him as he held his body rigid to control his dive. The spiky savage form rapidly neared. He braced himself as his tunic caught the lancer about the neck, unhorsed it, and sent it spinning to the plain below.
He felt a crushing weight of sadness fall upon him. He looked over to see Jigafra standing over the body of Jigla, his son. Verdun sighed. "I am so sorry, dear friend. He was a great being and died a tremendous warrior." In response, he felt from Jigafra only a complex wave of grief, almost beyond even his ability to translate in his mind. "There will be more strife, Jigafra. I see war ahead."
"Yes, as do I,"
echoed the great creature.
"These things, Parians have fought them before, long ago, an age past. I believe your race has encountered them as well."
Imagery now streamed in Verdun's inner eye as he glimpsed the scenes flowing in Jigafra's mind.
"We thought they were all destroyed. We call them the Vorn. They are hideous and evil, and incredibly dangerous if their hive is reformed."
So let me ask you this. Of everything that you've accomplished, creatively and otherwise, and evolved to at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Oh Lord, that's hard to say. I have a lot of different pieces. I certainly love the pieces I wrote for my daughter, which I briefly mentioned. Um, so I wrote the first two books, and you'll hear excerpts from those, and then took a break when my daughter was born and did what I call the Fantastic Theater, and it's my like arts education concert series. And I wrote for her and me to perform theatrical pieces, the Musical Forest and the Fantastic Zoo and Dancing Nighthawk, which is like a cinematographic ballet I created for her. She was the lead in these. And the Fantastic Zoo, our last performance, was really cool. It was like a peak moment. And I have a film of it on my website, my YouTube channel, Sound Artists, Sound Art Us. By the way, that's the name of most of my things. Sound as in sound, art, and us. Because Dr. Sound Artist was a character in the Musical Forest story and all that. So if you go there, you can see the whole film because I filmed the live show, which really went well. Very theatrical. I have giant puppets I created, and the music is pouring. Great symphonic music is pouring. It's like anyway, that one I always feel great about, and my daughter's performing in it too. And this glorious dancer came in to perform the scene where I'm doing the dragon, and it's talking about the war on imagination and all that kind of thing. So I don't know, that's a standout for me since you
Yeah.
asked.
Well, let's dig in a little bit more specifically here. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, everybody that knows you, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's a good one. So someone who lives in their imagination, and sometimes I forget I even live in a physical vessel, because I'm so in my mind. So I just think I'm an artist, and my job is to bring as much meaning and beauty out and present it to people and participate. I don't mean to sound pretentious, but I believe artists participate in the evolution of humanity. All right. You can look at all these great artists and the scientists, and they connect it up. And sometimes the artists were first, sometimes the scientists were first with very specific inventions and discoveries. And so all of that is there. But of course, you can't think about that. You just do your work, and what happens, happens. And hopefully, it'll help people evolve in their personal lives and grow. And mostly, that is through engaging the imagination, which has been degraded a lot in modern life. And I believe in the transformative power of imagination, that it leads to so many things, positive things. And if you develop and that's one of the purposes of the great fantasy stories, is their exercises in imagination. And fantasy stories are talking about life. That's what Lloyd Alexander said. Now, Tolkien said it's an escape, that you are honor bound to deliver and bring as many people with you, like escaping a prison.
Yeah.
And but Lloyd Alexander talked more about it being a metaphor, all these things in your fantasy story, metaphor. So if you can identify with the character and all these imaginative realms and world building, then as you go about in life, you're going to see and hear everything with imagination and color, and sort of contradict some of the drabness and the fluorescent lighting and the corners and the pavement. A beautiful forest is now a parking lot.
Yeah.
So, but you'll see that little flower growing in between the cracks and realize it's on a quest. It's on a quest to get back to that forest that it remembers from times ago. That sort of thing. So.
That's wonderful, man. So, Tales of the Ocean City, if people want to pick up copies, delve into your world, it's kaufmantales.com with one F,
Yes.
not two. So yeah, is there anywhere else that people can go? Anything else they can delve into?
Sure. There's my author's website, which is talesoftheoceancity.com.
Okay.
And of course, you just mentioned kaufmantales.com, which is my store, but it's more than a store. It has reviews and the links to book trailers and examples of their live videos like you've just heard, and stuff like that. And then my home website, if you're curious as to my whole thing and you can see my music and hear it, it's just soundartist.com. Again, sound art us, sound artists. And that's kind of like my interface to the world. So it's my website, my YouTube channel, and also my bookstore, Kaufman Tales. When you get there, it says Sound Artist Books,
Okay.
And those are the best ways to get through to me.
Cool. I will put those links in the show notes. Christopher, this has been wonderful and illuminating. Thank you, sir, for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you for your brilliant and incisive questions.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right.